Navy, Air Force, whatever they call them, I don't know. I knew him particularly well. He wasn't going very well at all. We had a little bloke from Banks, I think his name was, got blown out of a stoker out of a boiler room, engine room, in a bubble, and he was completely peeled of skin. His skin was all peeled everywhere, the whole lot. He died on board, and I buried him ashore, and the three of us buried him ashore when we did get ashore. But then we, at daylight, was well and truly broken by that time. I'm talking about 9 o'clock in the morning, I think it would be. Well, then we decided that we'd have to get ashore. Well, Mac, the Air Force pilot officer, he had done reconnaissance around the place, and especially with a man with navigation like he would have. He was the handiest man in our boat. And anyway, we went through the night then, so I was in the water from 12 o'clock midnight until through the next day, and then 6 o'clock the next morning. About 30 hours I was supposed to be. But we did, on one occasion, hear a cry for help on the last night. And it was a cry for help, and it was an American. And so Jummer Brown, a little Jack Mahardy bloke on board, he jumped out of the boat and grabbed us. And this fellow was a tremendous big man, enormous, and he was, his name is slipped my memory now, but nevertheless we got him on board, and then we picked up another bloke and got him on board, and then round about daylight we saw an island, a beach or something, and we got ashore in there, and we got Campbell out, and the sick blokes, and Minikin was another bloke that was badly wounded, and we buried the stoker, and then we landed at a place called Labourne, not Labuan, Labourne, and we landed at the tip. It's just below Krakatoa, so it was about 60 miles that we had travelled to get there, and then it was only a little village, and the natives, for about 3 or 4 days after this, all had little flaming arsehole flags, a red fried egg flag, and so the propaganda had been through, and they weren't particularly keen on us, so 5 of us broke off, and we thought, well, we'll go out and try and contact the Dutch army so that they could come down and get these boats. And so after 5 of us started off, and we were all around the 18, 19, 20 mark, we went through a series of little villages on a bitumen road, but the sabotage work was tremendous because they cut timber of trees, and you had to crawl over these trees in places where the villages are, so no motor transport could get through. And we went for about 4 days, I think it was, and we never saw anybody. And then we were picked up by a crowd of Sundanese headhunter blokes. They were very primitive bloody blokes, but I understand there was a bounty on a head of 35 guilders if so they were very, very keen to get this money, and they had big parang knives, and they tied us up back to back on the bitumen road, and there would have been 5, 10 or 11 of us. And anyway, one fella got his arm up here to avoid a blow, and he got his slashed very badly down here. Another bloke died. I had my back to him, and then out of the blue, out of the corner, came a Keystone cop car, the old Keystone crops with a wire cage at the back and a model A Ford, a Model T Ford or something, I think. And anyway, 2 Japanese policemen got out, and they said, and they were armed, and they of course wanted the ransom money we took it to be, and they opened the back of the cage door at the back to put the prisoners in, and he said, we can only take 5 people. And so anyway, those that were when so they cut our liana vine off us, and you never saw 7 people get in to where 5 people could get in.
Yeah.
Well, they went down the road towards Panaglang, which is Laborn, Panaglang, and then Serang. And I have been back there and retraced it. And anyway, when we got down the road further, they had manacles, and it was a long chain, a very long chain, and there were about 10 handcuffs on these, and they handcuffed us to these manacles.
Can I just take you back just a little bit? Was the chaplain with you at any time? Matheson?
No, not at that stage.
No, and but you had buried the stoker?
Yeah.
What about McWilliams?
We cast him overboard in the sea.
Okay.
And he was a observer. He was a lieutenant observer, McWilliam. And anyway, I'll just
hold it there for a second. Charlie, would you like to tell us about you very quickly after you've landed on the coast and you've moved along? But I'd like to know just what clothing you had on and what condition you were in.
Just a short few words before getting into Sarai. As we were picked up by the Jap destroyer, we went up onto the upper deck, and as we went onto the upper deck, we had to strip. There we stood in our baby suits, knowing that this is when you come POW. From there, they transferred us to a transport ship. We were on that for about 7 days. From there, they landed us, and this is when we went up to the Tellerine. I was placed in the theatre, and no blankets, nothing. I was just given this G-string on board the ship, on the destroyer, and that's all we had. Nothing at all. Just that. Then we went into the theatre, and we were told to just sit there, and they just rammed everyone into this theatre, and you had to take turns to have a sleep, and all you laid on was coffee. After a short time, we were transferred on further. That's mine.
Thank you. And now, Chilla, if you can go on about.
We went to a Dutchman's home that was apparently the mayor of the town. We were interrogated, and they seemed to have more interest in Queenslanders and Western Australians than what they were other part of Australia. And from there, we were out there all day in the sun, and we were naked.